Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by A.G. Hines Company. No one in East Tennessee can offer what they can offer. That's cutting-edge building materials and tools that other people don't carry. Great prices, just tremendous prices down there. The expertise that comes with 100 years of doing this right here in East Tennessee. Your great-grandpappy built his house using materials and tools from A.G. Hines Company. You should too. If you've got a do-it-yourself project, that's where you need to start. aghines.com to learn more. All right, Tennessee held their first scrimmage this past Thursday, and the defense was clearly ahead of the offense. Now, Tennessee held out their top receivers because it was wet turf, so they didn't take any chances with them. More importantly, though, their offensive line is still trying to gel. You don't have Darnell Wright. You've lost Jerome Carvin, so you're trying to replace your best offensive lineman, another key offensive lineman. And on Wednesday, Josh Heupel said that center Cooper Mays, who's kind of the linchpin of that line, he said that he had had a minor procedure. Now, I've always heard that a minor procedure is what someone else has. What you have is a major surgery. He had a minor procedure. He's expected to be back a couple of weeks. More than everybody expects him back for Virginia. My guess is Tennessee won't tell you that. They'll say game time decision right up until kickoff. But for now, when you're trying to get this line put together, he's not in there. So you're not only trying to fill two new holes, you're having to move Ollie Lane over, and he's been taking most of the reps at center. It's an interesting mix that you've got going on at a time when you'd like to kind of figure out what your O-line has. So how big of a concern is that? Or is it just, hey, this is spring practice, it happens?
It's the one guy I'm concerned about on the offensive line because I think they have depth in every other position where, frankly, they can go two or even put a third guy in there.
Not a lot of experience, but depth.
Yeah, but you feel like they could at least be serviceable. But when it comes to the center position, it's just somebody else converted at center, right? And that becomes a little problematic to me or a little concerning to me if he deals with injuries later on. I'm glad he's getting it done now, though, as opposed to having to get it done mid-season. So probably better off for Tennessee, but that's the one position at the offensive line to be concerned about.
When you think about this offense, it's spacing, it's those wide splits, and it's tempo. It's the speed. Mm-hmm. Tempo comes back to two guys, quarterback and center.
Quarterback and center. That continuity you've got to be married to your center like you're married to your playbook. It's just that intense. You're out there 30 minutes before practice. You're out there another 15 minutes after practice. You got that center quarterback transaction has got to be like walking and chewing gum. It's got to be flawless to have anything happen in proper continuity for an offense.
All right, now I know going into this question you're not going to say anything bad about this.
Hey.
But let me ask you this. It's not optimal. You would prefer to have Cooper Mays out there with Milton in this preseason because they haven't worked together all that often. You'd like to have them working, would you not?
More reps. You need more reps with your guy because during the game things happen and things change. Hence the audible has come to light. But I just want to jump in on the one issue that we talked about, the starting receivers not playing. I think that could have been something. And like I said, I love my team as a holistically, but I got my guys and I'm on offense. We're going against the defense big time. So it could have been a situation, well, let's give the DB some confidence since the boys on offense taking it to them every practice. That's what I'm thinking. That's how I feel.
Let's go ahead and put the poll back in if we can. We'll try and do that whenever the guys start talking. We'll try and put the poll back in there for you. Daniel, you heard Sterling say his favorite word, continuity.
Yeah.
All right?
Yep.
You could look at this a couple of different ways. One, well, as Will said, better to have it now than later. So you could look at this and say, it's not perfect that Mays isn't in there, but we are having to build depth right now.
Right.
Okay, so that's the positive. The negative side is you want the continuity. You want this new line to get as many reps as they can together. Which way down that do you come down?
I'm leaning more to getting the guys reps right now. I think Mays has started, 19 games at this point, somewhere in that range. When you get to that point in your career, a lot of what you're doing is really keeping your body healthy so that you can play the game. And so Milton and them, we want to push the tempo. Yeah, they got to be insane. They got to be in control of the audibles and that type of stuff. But it's still the SEC. It's still offensive line, defensive line driven league. You need to know what your contingency plan is as a coach if you lose that guy, because that may be, back to our first segment, that may be a guy just as important as your quarterback. And you need to be repping what that looks like if he's not there.
Well, it'll if Cooper Mays doesn't come back in a couple of weeks, that's just in time to change that center quarterback dynamic just in time for the first game.
Yeah.
So you lose the continuity there. Plus, sometimes with second team guys like Squirrel White and Joe Milton, they have a chemistry because they've been working scout team and second team. Well, with the center, that's not the case. They're working 4 different guys there. They've been working 4 different guys at left guard. So you don't have that chemistry with the guys from working with them regularly. So I think Cooper Mays is one of the most important players on this offense because there is a drop off after him. So does it change the win total for the year? I'm not ready to go there yet, but I do think it's a little bit of a speed bump going into the season, and we'll see how they handle it.
The problem is there's no dyed-in-the-wool second-team center. It's taking a guard and then saying, snap the ball as well and do something different than you've been doing all through fall camp the rest of the time.
The tempo
So
is
that's why I think I get most concerned about Cooper's health than maybe anybody else but the quarterback.
And this offense, it's a little bit geared towards kind of masking. You don't have to have like first-round draft picks,
Yes.
like all across the board. So the offense, and there's ways I think they will probably, if they do have some issues with continuity, maybe they can sort of massage that until they get into the year. The schedule, I think, will help for a couple of weeks.
Well, if the issue is we're gonna speed you to death,
Right.
then let's say Ollie Lane is a second slower than Cooper Mays. Get
That's
that thing
huge.
snapped. So that's over time. That's a big deal.
That's a huge deal. I think one of the biggest examples we've all had in recent history when it comes to offensive line changing at a moment in the game where it actually turns out very bad for the team changing the offensive line was the TCU game this last year. TCU had to get their starting center to move the guard and their starting tackle to move. He got hurt. He had to go to left guard, and they brought the third. Next, they got a walk on in the playoff game.
Yeah.
And not to take anything away from those guys, but when you're on a stage of such magnitude and your lines moving around, they don't have their calls together. I think unfortunately their quarterback suffered from that, and it didn't work out good for him.
I would also be less concerned about this if you weren't having to already replace 2 guys. Now, typically, you are replacing at least 1 or 2 guys every year on the offensive line, but the fact that you're having to replace your best offensive lineman and your own Carbon, and now you're without Cooper Mays, who's kind of the glue, if you will. Okay, that's a bit of a concern right now, but I'm with you. I mean, it doesn't mean, 8 wins. Don't affect the record yet, but it's one to watch. One to watch. All right.
Hey, it's just preseason, John Pitt.
That's right. We're talking about practice.
We're talking about practice.
When we come back, one national media member says the Vols will win big this year if the defense can improve. We'll discuss that. Will the defense improve? We'll discuss that and much more coming up next on the Sports Source. Come on back.